Hey guys, gals, non-binary pals. Chris again, today with another shop talk. Today, as you see behind me, I have a 2021 Chevrolet Spark LT. It's got the CVT automatic transmission in it. This is my personal car. I've had it since new. It's got a little over 55,000 miles on it right now. I think it's like 55,040 something. So today, what we're going to be doing is doing a transmission service on this vehicle. The CVTs, I'm not going to go into detail about how a CVT works over like a traditional like automatic transmission, but the CVTs that especially they've put in these cars and other small cars, I think some Nissans and some Hondas have the same CVT. They're known to be kind of made of glass. So you gotta treat them well, you gotta maintain them well. And part of that maintenance is what we're going to be doing today, which is basically a drain and fill of the fluid. And we're going to be replacing the strainer and the filter element. So I think the actual Chevy service manual or whatever says that like 80,000 miles to do this type of service. Some call me paranoid, some call me overly cautious. What they've never done is call me late to lunch. I personally, since this is my vehicle, I'm paying my hard-earned money for it. I've taken a stance of about every 25,000 I'm doing this service. And yes, that is much, much sooner than what the factory says. But at the end of the day, for the peace of mind, about $130 something of parts and fluids, and about 2 hours of my time, that's worth it to me. You know, I'm already spending like $40 something to change the oil on this car, and I do that every 5,000 miles. I do it with a high grade synthetic, so I may as well maintain the transmission as well, right? The reason I like doing this stuff for myself is one, because I know how to, and two, I actually just on a whim, I got a local shop, a really good shop. They don't rip off people. I got a local shop to quote me on doing this service, and it was something like $400. And that's just, you know, if you don't have the mechanical know-how to do things, that's okay. You know, pay the money, but maintain your car. Since I know how to do it, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to save myself a few $100s. I'm going to have peace of mind, and I'm going to take you along with the journey. So let's go over what we have. Okay, so we've got a parts box here. What I've got is a new gasket for the transmission pan. I've got a new filter element for the actual filter of this transmission. We've got a new strainer, which this is exactly what it says. It strains the fluid so that large chunks of pieces won't go through the system. I've got a new gasket for the drain plug, and I've got 6 quarts of the factory recommended AC Delco CVT fluid. This should take around 5, but always buy more than what you need. You never want to have to be in a spot of like having to go to the parts store in the middle of a job. It sucks. Ask me how I know. The other thing we got, which is something else I wanted to touch on, is I've got at the house a PDF copy of the service manual for this vehicle. And this is the service manual that, you know, Chevy technicians would have at the dealerships. This is a document that Chevrolet themselves put together on the intricacies of repair and diagnostics and all of that. If you have a vehicle, Google search service manual for your year, make, and model. Just have it. It's always a good thing. So what we've got is, though I know the process of how to do it, these service manuals will have things such as torque specs. So those are very important, right? And it'll also have things like on the pan, there is a torque sequence. So 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. So that you're not just going all the way around, you're getting equal torque on everything. So these are very valuable things to have and to know. All right. So now that we've gone over the parts, let's go over the tools we're going to need. So first off, we're going to need some sockets. In particular, we're going to need a 10 millimeter. That's going to be for the pan bolts. We're going to need a 19 millimeter. That's going to be for the pan drain plug. We're going to need an Allen key set. And I believe it's going to be the 10 millimeter because, and you'll see it when I do it, when you take off the drain plug, inside of there is an overflow tube. And that removes with an Allen key. That overflow tube, I'll show you how that works, but basically it regulates how much fluid you have in the car when you're filling it so that you don't overfill. We're also going to need a small torque wrench, specifically one that goes in inch pounds. I picked this up from Harbor Freight a couple of months ago. They were having a sale. I think this was like 30 bucks, maybe not even that. So torque wrenches are relatively inexpensive if you're just doing every now and again kind of work. And again, there's a larger torque wrench. So you hadn't even taken this one out of the package yet. This will be in foot pounds because there are some torque specs in this that are in inch pounds and foot pounds. So we're going to need both of those. Beyond that, we have a drain, a fluid drain pan. You can pick these up for 30, 40 bucks at most any auto parts store. And after that, we're just going to need a funnel. And if there's any incidental stuff along the way, I'll let you know what I'm using, where to use it at, things like that. So now that we've covered that, let's cover this. The main part that most people are going to get tripped up on when doing this service is that you can't do it with the wheels on the ground. All right? You've got to have the vehicle up in the air as relatively level as possible, right? Because when you've done your work, you've refilled the system, you've got to let the car go in first and like forward and reverse and the wheels spin, and you can't do that if it's on the ground, right? And it needs to be level because of that fill tube, the overflow tube I was talking about. If the car is front or back or whatever, it's going to give an inaccurate level in the system. So what we did, we just jacked it up in all four corners with some jack stands, right? So jack stands, again, you can get like 3-ton jack stands, like a set of 2 from Harbor Freight for 50, 60 bucks. Get you a Harbor Freight floor jack for maybe another 100, 120, and you're good to go, If you don't have those tools, maybe you have a friend that does, right? So we're going to go ahead and get into this, and I'll see you back in 1, 2, and now. So we're under the car. So you're facing going front, right? This is on the driver's side of the vehicle. This is the pan for the transmission. Alternatively, over here on more towards the passenger side is the oil pan. Don't get the two mixed up. You don't want to drain your transmission fluid, meaning to drain your oil pan, your oil, for when you're changing your oil. So the first thing we're going to do, and I have to warn you now, this is going to get messy. There's no other way around it. Just like changing your oil, you can minimize a lot of it, but it's going to get messy. So I've got my 19 millimeter, and I'm going to undo the drain plug here. There we are. I just heard a bit of a sound that I wanted to make sure that my jack stands were good, which they are. So we're undoing the drain plug, and there's going to be a little bit that comes out of here, you see, but that's not all of it. And remember, like I said, this is going to get nasty. The other thing is, automatic transmission fluid smells horribly. I can't stand the way it smells, but it is what it is, right? So we're just going to let this drain a little bit, drain into our pan here. After we're done, I'm going to be taking this old fluid and I'm going to be taking it to a local auto parts store and having them recycle it, just dump it into the recycling container. Most auto parts stores, you'll be able to take your used oil, your used transmission fluid, and other fluids too for proper recycling. So I definitely encourage you to do that when you do this work yourself. So I'm going to pull out, like I said, I think it's the 10 millimeter. How about y'all watch this, and I'm going to go to the toolbox. Is it still draining up under there? I'm pretty sure it is. La-di-da-di-dee. Okay. I'm just going to get some longer Allen head bits. That's all that was. Looks like that has finished draining, which is good. And let's see. It is not a 10 nor an 8. Will it be a 6? It is not a 6. It is indeed a 5 millimeter Allen head. It just slots right up in there. You can feel it when it slots in. And we're going to take that out. Well, that's no good. All right, guys, we're back. We got ourselves a little bit of a problem. If you didn't see in that last clip where I pretty quickly turned it off, I went in with that long Allen key. It was a ball end Allen key. And damn to the thing didn't break off inside that filler tube, that drain tube. So it had just enough left in it where I could get my shorter 5 millimeter in, and I've already got it loosened up. So the issue we're going to run into here is I'm going to remove that tube, and then, fingers crossed, I can get the ball end of that other Allen key out. If I don't, I'm going to have to get a new tube. Normally wouldn't be an issue, right? The issue is I've just been on the phone for the last 20 minutes calling the Chevy dealership, calling Napa, calling Advanced Auto Parts, all the part stores I could find. No one has it in stock. They'd have to order it. Like Napa and Advanced don't even offer that part. So I'd either have to order it straight from Chevrolet or from Rock Auto, which is where I got all the other parts for this vehicle. And that'll take a couple of days minimum, maybe upwards of a week to get in. So we're going to do this, and we're going to cross our fingers that I can get that piece out. If not, this car is going to have to basically sit here in this shop for about a week until, actually more than that, because I got a conference to go to next week. So it'll be maybe 8 or 9 days before I can get back to fixing this car, which is going to suck. So let's cross our fingers. It would probably be best practice to not even do this. But, you know, it is what it is, I suppose, right? Worst case scenario, I don't get that piece out and it's firmly lodged in there. I put the tube back in, fill it up with maybe a little bit more than the required amount of fluid. And then when I get the new tube in, I just put the new tube in and refill it with some new fluid. So, but that's the piece right there. And you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but inside there is that Allen, that hex head, and it just broke off. So what I'm going to try to do is get a long punch to go down in the center of this to get that ball end out. So that's what we're going to do. I can't really do anything other than that. So wish me luck. But you know what? This is part of stuff that just happens sometimes when you're repairing cars. Things go wrong, you know. It probably would have been better had I ordered a new tube when I ordered all of the other parts. But this part, the tube, isn't something that really goes out. It's not like a wear item. So it's just not something that I thought to order. So let's do that. Alrighty, I've had to fool around with this thing for probably about 30 minutes. But I did get, that's the broken off ball end of that Allen key. I did get it out of there, and I have confirmed that a 5 mil will still fit in there. It's a little boogered up, but it's not a big deal. It's still serviceable. What I did, I couldn't find in this shop here a punch that was small enough to get inside this tube all the way through down to here. So I ended up having to use a drill bit, and it gave me just enough. I mean, I only had about that much, maybe a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 inch poking out. It gave me just enough to put it down on the solid table and give it a good solid hit a couple of times with the hammer. So crisis averted, fortunately. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to go under the car and I'm going to start removing the drain pan, and we're going to get this thing, it should start moving pretty quickly after that. So join me for that.
Hey, Chris here from the editing bay. I didn't talk about it in this video, but I really wanted to here. I had another option that, as far as that drain tube goes, in which I could have modified the drain tube if the hex socket of the tube had been damaged beyond the ability to receive a hex bit. It would have been a bit of a bodged temporary fix, but it would have allowed me to complete the service and buy some time until I could address it properly. Basically, there's a little bit of material at the end of the tube where the threads are on the outside, where I could have carefully ground in two channels opposite from one another to allow for a flat blade screwdriver to slot in and allow me to install the tube and get some torque on it. I just wanted to mention this here because sometimes things like this are things you have to consider when you're working on a vehicle. A little bit of thinking outside the box can sometimes mean the difference between broke down on the side of the road waiting for a tow truck that may or may not come, or getting home safely. So that's just a part of working on a vehicle, and it's something that you can keep in mind. Just think outside the box just a little bit. All right, let's get back to it.
Alrighty, everybody, we are back to it. Now I'm going to need my 10 millimeter socket and my ratchet. And just to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to get a small adapter here, lengthen up the socket wrench just a tad. Make sure that we're on lefty-loosey. And we're just going to start taking some of these bolts. For right now, I'm just loosening the bolts. What we're going to do, we're going to get it loosened up. And then, starting on one end, I'm going to take the bolts completely out so that, because there's still going to be a little bit of fluids left in this pan here. Sorry if my big head's getting in the way of you there. I'm trying to get on a blind bolt over here. I can't see it because I'm trying to give y'all a good look at what's going on. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and remove this little piece here so that I can a little bit more easily take this pan out. I'm going to end up having to remove this anyway because when I replace the filter's actually up. I'm going to have to take the wheel off and all of that. So it's going to be good to just go ahead and get the sucker out of the way as it is. Or at least moved enough to where I can maneuver around here a little bit. Yeah, that's fine. Now then, I've got all of these pretty well loose, enough that I can get to it with my fingers. Get some better light on the situation. You know, I'm actually kind of glad that we had that little hiccup with the drain tube. Mainly because if you're going to be working on your own vehicle, eventually something's going to happen that's just going to throw a wrench in your problems. A part's going to break, or you find out that you've done something that makes the job a little bit harder. You know, all sorts of things could happen. But what really matters at the end of the day is the problem solving that it takes to fix the problem. You know, if I hadn't have problem solved my way out of that broken Allen wrench, I would have been stuck without an operational vehicle. And that would have sucked. I'm just gonna go ahead and take this one all the way out. It all comes down to making sure that you have your wits about you sometimes when you're working on a vehicle, because things will happen. Now I should be smart and get the electric wrench that I know exists in this shop. It'll make this job a lot easier. But I kind of want to do this whole job with just hand tools to show you that it absolutely can be done with just hand tools. You don't have to have anything crazy special. I'll come back to you when I got this thing off. Alrighty guys, we are back with it. I got most of the bolts out. I've still got 3 back here that are loosened up. I've got this one right here, but all the ones on the perimeter I've taken out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to crack the gasket here so that I'm dumping the pan this way into this catch pan. There we are. Like I said, messy. Go ahead and take this bolt completely out. Messy, messy, messy. You can't be afraid of getting dirty when you're working on a vehicle. And last bolt. And there we are. We got the pan off. So I'm just going to slide this out of the way for right now. This right here is the strainer that I was talking about. And it's going to have 3 bolts holding it in. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out from under the car. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and take the strainer off. We're already under here. And these are, again, 10 millimeters. There's one. There's 2. And there's 3. I'm going to put these off to the side and shimmy and shake to get that out. Now you'll see there is a rubber O-ring that goes right here. You want to make sure that comes out with the strainer, because the new strainer we're putting in already has a new O-ring installed. So we're just going to set that there. Going to leave everything like this, and we're going to go take that pan and get it cleaned out real good. All right, we're on the work table now. So this is our transmission pan. What you're seeing here is the old gasket. I've already done this service once before at about 30,000 miles. And I kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit, where instead of buying the original equipment factory gasket, I purchased a little bit cheaper gasket material that required a bead of RTV, room temperature vulcanizing rubber. But what that means is I've now got to do the work to remove that old gasket and the old RTV as much as I possibly can to get a good surface here. So I'm just going to do that for a little bit with this razor blade and just get as much of it as I possibly can so that I got a good sealing surface right here, because I did get the right, or the original equipment gasket for this particular job. So I'm just going to go around here and get this cleaned up a bit. When you take this pan off, you're going to see 2 things in here. Obviously, you're going to see remaining fluid, but right here and right here are 2 magnets. These magnets are meant to pick up any metal fragments, any metal dust or something like that that may have come off during just normal wear and tear on your transmission. So that way that those metal shavings don't get continually pushed through the system and wear away things even more. So we're going to have to make sure that we clean off these magnets pretty well, and I'm going to clean the pan itself pretty well. I have the benefit of this shop where I actually have a parts washer that I'm going to do this with, but you can do this with just a can of like brake clean from the auto parts store. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'll come back when I've got everything cleaned up, and the next thing we're going to do is reinstall the new strainer. We're going to reinstall the pan with the new gasket. We're going to put that drain tube back in, and then we'll go from there. All right. All right. So I've taken the time to clean up that pan, I used a little bit of a Scotch-Brite pad to just lightly rub away any of the remaining RTV that I was not able to get with the razor. So now what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the strainer, and we're going to reinstall the pan. And this is where having a torque wrench comes in handy. Now, I spoke earlier about having some select pages from the service manual for this vehicle. And what I'm really interested in here is right here, install the 3 fluid strainer mounting bolts, tightened to 8 Newton meters or 71 inch-pounds. So let's talk about how to actually use a standard torque wrench like this, because it can be a little bit confusing sometimes. Right here, I know it's going to be hard to see on the camera, but I'm going to make a little diagram so you can follow it a little bit. Right here you see different numbers. So we got 50, 60, let's see. So 50, 65, 80, 95, yada, 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 right? And then around here, we have 0, 5, 10, 0, 5, 10, right? So what that actually looks like, let's say that this is the handle section right here, right? You're going to have, let's say, 80 over here. And then there's going to be a little line, bam, right? So if I want to set that to 80, I just twist up this handle until it's even with that line. Not the number, but the line it points to, okay? If I wanted to set it to 85, I twist the handle until it's even with the 80 and on 0, like that. And then I just go to the 5 mark over here. So that'll be 85. If I want to go to 80, I'll just go to where the 0 is. So actually, it's pretty simple. And then on most torque wrenches like this, you'll have a little knob back here that you can kind of lock it down so it's not going to move. So that's what we need to do. We need to set the strainer to 71 inch-pounds. And then the actual pan itself, it has 13 bolts, and they do prescribe a specific pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so on and so forth. Instead of just going one after the other in a circle, right? The reason they do this is so that you have equal torque, equal pressure on the gasket as it seals. It ensures a better seal that doesn't leak. And on this unit, our torque spec will be, well, where is it? Right here. 6 Newton meters or 53 inch-pounds or pound inches. Again, inch-pounds, pound inches, and foot-pounds are different by a lot. 53 inch-pounds is something like, I can't do the conversion right now, but I think it's something like 13 foot-pounds versus if you used a foot-pounds torque wrench and set it to 53, that's way more. And you'll just strip out bolts, tear stuff up. So let's go do that. We're going to get these installed. I'll take you along for the journey using our torque wrench. And I'm going to go ahead and set it to, it was 71 inch-pounds for the, yep. So I'm going to go ahead and set it. All right, so I have that set, actually. I had it on the wrong side, because on this one you got inch pounds and you got centimeter per some whatever. So let's go to all right. So on this one, I don't have a 70 mark over here, but I do have a 65 mark over here. So what I did, I went to 65 with the 0, and then I advanced it 5 more, so that'll be 70, and then 1 hash mark more is 71. I'm going to lock it down at that 71, and we're going to get to it.
Hey, Chris here again. Just wanted to touch on a little thing about torque wrenches. If you are using a torque wrench, let's say hypothetically it has a 20 pound to 100 foot-pound range, and you need to have a torque of, say, let's say 23 to 25 foot-pounds, or like 95 to 100 foot-pounds, right? You don't really want to use a torque wrench at the extreme ends of its range. Usually about 20% from its extreme ranges is where you want to have your torque wrenches being utilized at. Anything below that, so like 20 to, let's say, like 28 to 30 almost, whatever that 20% is, anything below that, you may introduce some inaccuracy because of the way the torque wrenches are calibrated, the mechanisms within the torque wrench. Similarly, like if you have if you have a torque wrench that goes up to 100 foot-pounds and you need 99 foot-pounds for some reason, even though that's really tight, you will still maybe have some inaccuracy there. It could vary quite a few percentages. If you set it to 95 foot-pounds and you go to it clicks, it could be over 100 or it could be well under 100. Who knows? So, and this kind of affects all torque wrenches, no matter of price or quality. Yes, most high quality torque wrenches that will go for like multiple hundreds of dollars will have much less of that inaccuracy, but it is something to keep in mind when you are, one, purchasing your torque wrenches, and two, using your torque wrenches. There's what's called a 20% rule for torque wrenches, and that's what I was just talking about. So just try not to use a torque wrench when you're needing a torque that's within about 20% of its extreme ranges, whatever that range may be. All right, let's get back to it.
All right, we're back up under the car here. We're going to open up our new strainer. I'm just going to quickly make sure that the sealing surface here is good and flat, that I don't have any undue residue left over. It's looking pretty okay to me. Actually, let me go get that Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm just going to dress up this mating surface ever so slightly. Alrighty. Just got a couple little places where there's a little bit of residue from that RTV. Just going to address those places. We just want as best of a mating surface as we possibly can get for our new gasket. Yeah, got a little bit of a buildup there. That's gone. A little bit left there. Alrighty, we're good to go. So now we got our new strainer. We're making sure that it has that O-ring installed. I'm gonna slot this into place. It does not take much force at all. Take our bolts, get those started. There's one started. There's two. Oh. And there's three. Now, with the torque wrench, generally, you do not want to use an extension. The reason for that is, especially on higher torque needs, the extension itself can twist ever so slightly and give you a slightly off reading where perhaps you're under torquing or even over torquing the bolt. Even though it may register correct on the torque meter, on the torque wrench, the bolt itself, because of the extension, hasn't actually been torqued to spec. So you generally want to try to avoid that, and if you can't, use something like an impact rated extension. Those are generally more of a harder steel that's going to have a little bit less of a torsional impact. So this is actually a 1/4 inch drive, so I need to go find a 1/4 inch drive 10 millimeter. So y'all just hang out right there and I'll be right back, because I know I got one right here. Oh, where are you? There you are. So I'm already set to 71 inch-pounds. Let's go the right way. I'm just getting them barely snug. And now I'm going to go and actually torque. With this style torque wrench, it's called like a brake action torque wrench, you'll actually feel this handle give ever so slightly, and you'll hear an audible click when you're at torque. There we are. And that's it. That is torqued. So now we're going to take our new gasket, get that opened up. We're going to inspect it real quick just to make sure it doesn't have any tears or anything like that, which it doesn't, which is good. I generally like to install the gasket on the pan side, so that way I can take a bolt or two put it through the bottom of the pan, through the corresponding hole. Try not to put the pan in backwards. and just get a bolt started. There we are. Now we're going to go to the other side here. Line up the gasket, line up the bolt, and get one installed there. And now I'm just going to go around the perimeter, put in all my bolts, get them close to snug, you know, and then I'll come back with the torque wrench and put the proper torque on them in the pattern that is told to us by the service manual. So let me get this done and I'll bring you back. Alrighty, so I've got all of the bolts in, and I'm going to need to set this to, I believe it was 53 inch-pounds. So I'm going to roll it down to the 50, and then 3 more, and lock it in. Now this is actually going to be one of those situations where I'm going to have to use an extension, which, like I said, I don't like having to do, but it is what it is. So let's get these. And according to our chart here, I need to start on this bolt and then go to this one, and then this one and this one, and then this one and this one. I think. Is that right? No, I need to start over here. So I'm going to get on this bolt right here. Alrighty, that's 53. And now I need to go over here. And I'll just follow the bolt pattern until we've got everything torqued down to the appropriate level. This takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. But in the end, it's definitely worth it. So we're going to go over here. See, the one thing I don't like about working on vehicles is being under them, because your arms get tired out very easily. Because you're having to hold them up like this and everything else. So yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing for the next few minutes. I'm not going to make you sit through it. So I'll have you back when I'm ready to put in the actual filter. All right, so we've got that pan installed. We got it torqued down and everything else. I've got that drain tube back in place. Now, as you see, we've got the driver's side wheel off, because we've got to access the side of the transmission over here to install our new filter. To do that, we're going to have to take off this piece of the inner fender well. You can do this with the screwdriver to pop these little plastic pins or rivets, whatever you want to call them. They also make this tool here. It's like a panel remover tool where you can just get up under them. And if everything works out well, it comes right out. And that's what they look like. The more you work on vehicles, you will eventually break one of these. And that's okay. Because they make replacement ones. You can just pick up at most auto parts stores for really pretty cheap. The way they're supposed to work is that this piece goes into the hole by itself, and then this piece gets put in afterwards, and it expands and keeps some tension there. There, and we'll just fold that out of the way. Now, right here is where our filter element is. So we're going to need to take off this bolt here, and this housing should come right out. And then the filter is behind it. I think that's probably a 10 millimeter bolt. So let me go get all the tools for that. I'll go get the new filter, and we'll just get that done. Alrighty, so we're ready to remove this. And it is a 10 millimeter bolt right here. And we're just going to gently remove this. And you want to do this step after you have drained the fluid. This cover comes right out. It kind of got like a little ear right here. You gotta twist it a little bit, and then it'll come right out. Put my pan up under here to catch the fluid that's leaking. And we've got our filter element there. So we're gonna remove this. We're going to install our new filter element here, just like that, and then reverse order. Now, you really should be replacing this gasket here, that little rubber O-ring. I, unfortunately, did not purchase a new one when I was buying parts for all of this, so it is what it is. It'll be just fine. It looks like it was in pretty good condition. The best way of going about it, like I said, is to replace it. It should only be just a couple of dollars. But we're not going to worry about that for right now. And we're just going to give that a little snug. And it's done. So yeah, that's it. Now the only thing we have left to do is to fill up the transmission with some fluid. We're going to put back the wheel cover here. We're going to reinstall the wheel, and then fill up with some fluid, and I'll show you all of that. And there's a particular way to do this. So yeah, let me get all of this buttoned back up, and I'll bring you back for that. All right, we're back. So we've already done the filter, we've reinstalled the wheel, we've done the strainer, we've reinstalled the new strainer and reinstalled the pan, new gasket on that. I did go ahead and put the new bolt gasket on the drain pan bolt, the drain plug. So now, basically all we have to do is fill the system up. And there's a little bit of a process to it. What we're going to do deviates a little bit from what the service manual has dictated. One, I'm doing it for time and ease. Next time I do this transmission service, I will be doing it in this way. So let's go through what the service manual says for this car. So in the service manual, I've got right here, and these are just the sections that I'm interested in. The service manual itself is like 8,000 pages, so of course I didn't print it all off. So in the service manual, to do a drain and fill service on this transmission, which is effectively what we're doing now, it says to remove the drain plug, remove that tube, let everything come out of the pan as much as it can. And this is not the process that we're currently reading from to do the strainer and the filter, right? This is just for a simple take fluid out, put fluid in. So anyway, it says to take that drain tube out, let everything drain as much as it can out of the system, and then to reinstall that drain plug. Then it says to pour approximately 3 liters of the transmission fluid, the new transmission fluid. And like I said, we're going with the AC Delco CVT transmission fluid. That is what the manufacturer suggests. It says to put 3 liters in the system to start the engine. And then there's a process of going through your transmission gears. Specifically, it says move through the selector positions with the foot brake depressed, switch the selector from position from park to low, then back to park, and then hold each position for 5 seconds. So basically, you're doing from park to low, back to park to drive, back to park to reverse, back to park, and you're holding that for about 5 seconds each time. What that is meant to do is kind of just get the fluids flowing through the system. Because the nature of a drain and fill on these transmissions, you're not getting everything out. There's still going to be some of that old fluid left in the torque converter and other parts of the system. This is basically doing a flush with some of that new fluid to kind of dilute some of the old fluid. The service manual goes on to say, remove the drain plug, drain that fluid, and then do that process over again. And then you drain that fluid. And then it says to put that drain tube back in, and then put approximately 3 liters, and go through that process. There's a different process for the actual final fill after you've put that drain tube back in. You'd have to excuse me, it's relatively warm in the shop here. So we'll go through that process of park to low, park to drive, park to reverse, yada, yada, yada. We're going to let the engine idle for a bit. And then you're removing that drain plug and filling up after the engine's turned off, you're filling up more transmission fluid until it starts to just drip out from the top of that tube, right? That tube allows the proper level for that fluid to be in the pan, which again is a reason why you got to have the car level and in the air when you're doing this. So that's what we're going to do, is we're not going to do the flush part of that system. We're just going to put in we're going to put in new fluid and go through the process of making sure that we have the right fill, the right fill level. The one reason I'm not doing that process is because it's only been about 30,000 miles since I've done the first transmission service, and I'm doing about a 25 to 30,000 mile service interval for this. So the old fluid isn't really all that old when you consider that the manufacturer suggested service intervals are like 80 or 85,000 miles. So I'm not that concerned about doing a full system flush on this. So that's what we're going to do. All right. So let me take you over here, and I'm going to kind of show you what the situation is as far as where your fill location is under the hood, and what you need to get the job done. So come on with me. Oh, let me get my flashlight. There we are. So what we've got here, if you look down there, you see right here that tube. That is your transmission fill tube. Okay? That is normally covered up with this cap. To remove this cap, you just got to get a little screwdriver down in the center, and there's like a tab you got to push down, and this will remove. I know this looks like a dipstick. It is not. That is not a dipstick. This is simply a fill location for the transmission fluid. The one thing you're going to need is a long and skinny funnel. I need to clean this funnel up a little bit, but it needs to be skinny enough to fit inside that tube and also long enough to reach down there. The best thing that you could have is they make these funnels with like a flexible hose end to it. That's the best, because right now it's kind of at a weird angle, and I'm just going to have to make very extra certain that it is in that tube when I'm filling with the fluid. As I'm doing that, once I get to about that 3 liter part, I'm going to periodically be looking up under the car where I have the drain plug out, but that tube in, and I have my pan under the car. So I'm going to be looking for some of that fluid to start coming out of the drain plug hole. When that happens, I'm going to stop putting in fluid. I'm going to put the drain plug back in, and I'm going to start the car after I reinstall this cap for the drain tube. You don't want to do this with that cap off, because it can like start spraying out that tube. So that's the way to do it. So I'm going to start the car, run it through the gears, let the car idle. I'm trying to get the transmission temperature up to 100, 150 degrees or something like that. There's no gauge in the car to tell you what the transmission temps are. So I'm just going to let it go for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. And then once that's done, I'm going to shut the car off. I'll remove that drain plug, see if there's any fluid coming out. If there's not, I'll start putting fluid in until fluid does start coming out. And then we're basically done. I just put the drain plug back in, torque it to spec, and we're off to the races. Job done. So let me get this filter cleaned out a little bit, and I'll bring you back when I'm starting to put in some fluid. All right, so I've got the filter, the funnel cleaned out a little bit. I'm making visually, I'm making sure that the filter is in that drain fluid, that fill hole, the fill tube. And I'm just going to start slowly putting in some fluid. This is 1 quart. Let me actually go look at what the translation from quarts to liters for this would be. So 3 liters, according to the service manual, approximately equivalent to 3.17 quarts. So a little over 3 bottles. And you know, there's several companies that make automatic transmission fluid, and most of those companies also make transmission fluid that is made for CVT transmissions. That's continuously variable transmission or something like that. I don't know I think that's the acronym. but I could be wrong. I generally err on the side of these manufacturers have engineered their vehicles to a point where they know what fluid works best in the stock configuration. So I generally try to go with the manufacturer suggested fluids. Yes, there are some instances where, like engine oil, for example, there's not really a manufacturer suggested brand. They just say that for this particular car, it's an OW20 engine oil, Dexos. It's like a engine oil standard. So you just got to make sure it's the OW20 Dexos oil. Most every oil company makes that. I typically like Fram or Valvoline synthetic. I only do synthetic motor oil in this, and I actually think it's called for synthetic in the owner's manual. I'm not entirely certain, so don't quote me on that one. But only do synthetic. I buy high quality oil. It's got all the vitamins and nutrients the engine needs to help give it a good long life. A lot of these oils, I know I'm going on a tangent here, so bear with me, but a lot of these oils are engineered to have very specific detergents, very specific additives to help prolong engine life and reduce wear within the engine of different components. So I don't, unless I am in an absolute pinch, I don't use like store brand cheap oil, mainly because those brands of oils may not have that same level of fluid engineering put into them. So that's my tangent about engine oil, but I'll give you one more little thing about that. There is this myth about if you use synthetic oil, you can never go back to using conventional motor oil, that you're not supposed to mix them. You know, you can always go up to synthetic, but you can never go down to conventional, that kind of thing. In reality, and I actually found this out relatively recently in the last couple of years, because I definitely fell into that myth about, I use synthetic, I can't use conventional. And I was telling people, don't use conventional if you've ever put synthetic in your vehicle. In fact, Valvoline, I believe it was Valvoline, it was one of the big motor oil companies. They did a study on that and basically said, no, it's perfectly fine. And keep in mind, yeah, it's Valvoline, it's a company, and the conspiratorial minded would say, they're just trying to say that so that, people will buy their oils, and which is fair. But Valvoline also makes cheaper conventional motor oils, and you would think that if it actually benefited them, they would say, yeah, definitely, you can't use synthetic you can't go back to conventional if you've used synthetic or whatever, because they want to sell you the more expensive synthetic. But no, they said, and I read elsewhere, that it just doesn't matter if you got to use conventional motor oil, as long as it's the motor oil weight and all of that your car needs. It's perfectly fine. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and it's kind of like a pervasive little myth that's happened through. So I've got the 3 quarts in here. I'm going to open up another quart and put in a little bit. And then I'm going to check up under the car and see if it's starting to come out from that drain tube. So I'm going to check up under here. I do not yet see it. You're just going to see a disembodied arm doing this, I think. So I'm kind of kneeling on the ground in front of the car, just enough to where I can see when it starts to drip out. And there it is. We've got drips. And that's cool. So I'm going to go ahead and let that go to a bare drip. It's kind of like a semi-solid stream right now. There we are. Now I'm going to reinstall this drain plug. And I'm not really going to worry about the torque spec on that drain plug quite yet. We will do that after everything's said and done and I do the final torque on this. I'm just going to get that drain plug snugged in. Just like that. Okay. Pop this fill cap back in. That's in there. Now, like I said, we're going to start the car up and go through that process. So give me a minute. I'm going to get my hands cleaned up a little bit, get in the car and do that. I'll bring you along. Alrighty, so we are ready to start this car up. I confirmed that my drain plug was in and it's torqued down a little bit so we won't have any leaks. I've got my fill tube cap back in place. So yeah, this vehicle has 55,081 miles on it right now. Start it up. Just gonna let it idle here for just a moment. And take your time doing this. There's no rush in it. The more time you take, the better. So I'm going into neutral. I still have my foot on the brake. Switch back into park. I'm going to go all the way down to low, or to the L on the gear selector. Still foot on the brake. Back into park. I'm going to go down to drive, foot on the brake. Into park. And now into reverse. And I'm going to repeat this process a few times. On this next time, I'm going to actually go from park to low, and I'm going to take my foot off the brake to let the wheel spin a little bit. I'll do that for 30, 45 seconds. And then I'm going to go through the other gears. I'm going to go park to drive, take my foot off the brake, let the wheel spin for a little while. Go park to reverse, wheel spin a little while, park to neutral, foot off the brake, back to park, and that's what we're going to do. All right, so I'm back in park, into low, and my feet My foot is off the brake. Visually confirm that my wheels are spinning. My car is angry at me because I have the car in park and no seatbelt on and the door open. I'm going to go, I've applied the brake. I'm going to go into park. I'm going to go to new drive. Same thing. Car gets angry at me because no seatbelt, window or door open, and the wheels are spinning. Slowly apply the brake, go back to park. Go to neutral. Foot off the brake. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. So I'm going to keep on doing this. I'm going to go back into park, put it in reverse, foot off the brake. And I'm going to do this, like I said, a few more times. I'm not going to make you sit here through it, but that's kind of the process. After this, I'm going to shut off the car. I'm obviously put it back into park. And check the fluid level one more time by taking that drain plug out. So I'll see you back with that. Alrighty, so I've gone through that process. It took me about 10 minutes. I'm gonna crack open this drain plug. And we do not have any fluid coming out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that cap back off and put a little bit more fluid in. All right, job's done. So ended up taking just a touch over 4 quarts in the end. After I ran through the gears like I was showing you, I did that for about 15 minutes, just running through gears. And I shut the car off and checked the level by removing that oil, that drain plug. And I started adding more fluid until it started coming out from the top of that drain tube. And I think it ended up being like 4.1 quarts, something like that. So that tells me that a good amount had gone through the system already and was filling up all the empty spaces. You know, what I'm going to do is my next oil service at 5,000 miles. So that'll be 60,000 miles on this. While I'm doing it, I'm just going to crack that drain plug. And, you know, if it needs some, I'll add some. So, but otherwise, I wanted to do this video, one, because I know it's a topic that I've seen many times on the Chevy Spark subreddit. I'm a pretty active member there. And, I was talking to somebody just the other day on Reddit. They had I think it was a 2018 model or something that they said, and they wanted to do their transmission service. So I gave them kind of a walkthrough, but I told them, like, look, I'm doing it this weekend and I'm going to video it and, you know, have it up there for you to see and for other people to maybe get something valuable out of. I'm a big proponent of working on your own vehicle as much as you possibly can. Not the least of which is taking it to a shop is expensive, you know. And if there's something that you can do it. Take a few hours out of your day, maybe on your weekend or something, and just get the job done. The internet is a wonderful place where just about everything you can search and find an answer of, how do I change my own oil? How do I change out the bulb in my headlight? You know, things like that. How do I change my brakes? And I hope that, you know, maybe you're watching it today and you maybe searched, how do I do a transmission service on a Chevy Spark? And maybe you're watching this video and maybe you didn't think you could do it yourself, but now maybe you think you can. And if so, awesome, go for it. Do it. You know, I used really basic tools to do this as well. I didn't have to have any like really fancy equipment or anything like that. The most fancy thing that I had was I think it was like a $25 on sale torque wrench from Harbor Freight. You know, if you don't have a Harbor Freight near you, a lot of auto parts shops like O'Reilly's, Advanced, maybe Napa, I'm not sure, but a lot of auto parts stores have a tool loaner program where you can like basically check out like it's a library, a specialty tool that you may need, like a torque wrench or whatever, you know. That's a really good resource, and usually it doesn't cost you anything. You know, buy your parts there and buy your parts fluid, get you the tool you need, and if it does cost anything, it's just going to be minimal, you know. Or, you know, if you have a Harbor Freight near you and you're just a weekend gamer, do-it-yourselfer, watch out Harbor Freight for like some of their sales, like their Father's Day sales, Christmas sales, things like that. They usually have a pretty good deal on some tools that you may need. When I got that torque wrench, I ended up buying 3 torque wrenches from them. I got that small one, I got a medium-sized one. It's like a 3/8 drive, and I got a 1/2-inch drive large torque wrench. And I think it's their Pittsburgh brand. It's kind of like their store brand. I've maybe spent less than $100 for all 3 of them. I mean, they were super well priced. And, you know, I didn't have a torque wrench before then. I was having to borrow torque wrenches. This shop that I'm actually doing the work in today, this is like the backyard shop of my stepfather. Yeah, he was a professional mechanic and actually operated a transmission shop for many years. So he's got like all the specialty tools. He's got a bunch of Snap-on and Matco and stuff. You know, the really expensive stuff, you know. But I wanted to do it with my own basic tools to show you that you can do it with your own basic tools. Again, you have to excuse me, it's relatively warm today. I think in the end I used a 3/8 ratchet, a 19 millimeter socket, a 10 millimeter socket, a 5 millimeter hex head socket. But you can just use like a regular Allen key 5 millimeter if you're really in a bind. Then I used that panel remover, that panel clip remover tool, but you can do the same thing with just a small flat blade screwdriver. A funnel, a razor blade, and I think that's it actually. So not much. And all in all, like the socket set that I have, I got it like 20 years ago. I think it was like $50 or $60 from Northern Tool. Now I'm sure you're looking $100, $120 for a good like 110, 120 piece socket set like that. But you know, and that price can be a little bit of a shock to some people. You know, it's $100 is $100. More is more. Not everyone has that. But again, watch out for like Harbor Freight sales, or go like estate sales. Sometimes you'll be able to find tools. Some old guy may have died and had a garage full of tools, and they're getting sold. So estate sales, yard sales, you can generally find something. And I have a fair amount of tools, but I didn't go out and buy all those tools all at one time. That's the one thing I try to impress upon people when maybe they're starting on their do-it-yourself journey, is you don't have to go out and buy everything all at once. That'll be many hundreds of dollars, and you may not actually get what you actually need because you don't know what you need yet, right? So what I say is start off with like a good basic socket set, few pliers, and a few wrenches, a few like open end and box end wrenches. Start off with that, and you can piecemeal those together. For like the specialty stuff, like torque wrenches, or an oil filter wrench, or something, some specialty tool that you come up on and you say, oh yeah, I really kind of need this now. That's when you go and buy those things. That's when you go and get those things. You got a job coming up and you say, yeah, I need a 32 millimeter socket set or socket to be able to get the axle nut off my car because I want to change the CV axles. Okay, well, I'll go buy a 32 millimeter or whatever it may be socket, and I don't have to buy like the full set that's going to cost a few $100s. I can just buy the one socket, right? And that might cost you $10, $15, maybe a little bit more for something that big, but you get my point, is where you're piecing together your toolbox over time. That's how you end up having stuff. You just piece it together over time, and when you buy the things that you need at the time, that's when you learn how to actually use your tools. If you go drop several $100s all at once and you're just on your way to starting a do-it-yourself journey to work on your own car, or doing stuff at your house or whatever, you may end up buying stuff that you just never use because you didn't know any better at the time. There's a lot of tools being sold that just get sat in toolboxes and never used again. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm just kind of bullshitting at this point. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup. Really important thing when you're working with tools, your own and especially somebody else's tools. Clean it up afterwards. Wipe it down. If you're using somebody's workspace like I am today, you leave it better than the way you found it. You sweep up behind yourself. You organize stuff the way if you got something out of a particular drawer, you put it back in that particular drawer exactly where you found it. Because the one thing you'll learn about people that, work with hands for a living, or, mechanics, or, you'll find that everybody has their own organizational style. And it may look absolutely like organized chaos to you, but I promise you, they know exactly where everything is. And if you use something out of their toolbox and you don't put it back where it came from, they're going to get kind of frustrated when the next time they go to look for that tool, and then remember, oh yeah, he used my shop the other day, and that person may not be as willing to let you use the shop the next time. So just like with nature, leave it better than you found it. Pick up after yourself. Clean up your mess. I got a little bit of transmission fluid on the floor. I'm going to be putting down some oil dry, basically kitty litter. I'm going to be putting down some of that, just soak some of that out of the floor. And I'm going to try to leave this shop better than the way I found it. Beyond that, I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to clean up, get my hubcap back on the car, and we'll be out. So I hope this video helped you out a little bit, and I hope that wherever you are, I hope that you're having a good day. And if you're not, I'm sorry, truly. I hope that your tomorrow is better. I truly do. So take care of yourselves. Remember, You got this. You can do it. I believe in you. And look at me. I'm just some southern chud from the middle of Georgia. But you got this. All right. Hail yourself.